The White House maintains that this decision by the U.S. government to recognize the city of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel will advance the cause of peace in the region. One aide telling me that essentially by not choosing to recognize West or East Jerusalem, but the whole entire city, this allows the process to move forward because it takes a contentious issue off the table, something that we're likely to hear quite the opposite of from the region and from the broader global community. That, according to the White House, allows them to move to more contentious issues, border issues, sovereignty issues, and does not, according to the U.S. president, represent a change in the U.S. position. Take a listen.
We are not taking a position of any final status issues, including the specific boundaries of the Israeli sovereignty in Jerusalem or the resolution of contested borders. Those questions are up to the parties involved.
In terms of the timeline here, though, we're talking about years in terms of moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, as the president has now asked the State Department to look into. So it is not likely to happen around the corner. Therefore, the U.S. president signed a waiver giving the U.S. more time to meet that criteria early this morning, and he said he did so after taking a prolonged review throughout the agency and throughout the region of everyone's opinions before releasing his announcement on Wednesday. Take a listen.
I've judged this course of action to be in the best interests of the United States of America and the pursuit of peace between Israel and the Palestinians.
And in making his announcement on Wednesday morning, President Trump also addressed some of his domestic motivations, insofar as saying this was a campaign pledge I made. I wanted to keep it. Many of my predecessors did not keep the same campaign pledge, but it's not really clear that he's going to get additional domestic political traction out of this decision, because many of the political groups inside the United States that already support his position on this voted for him in the U.S. presidential election. Jessica Stone, CGTN, Washington.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed the decision and further says he's in touch with other countries seeking to follow in America's footsteps. Now, it's not clear which countries those are yet, but let's go live to Israel now and get you an update on the latest. I'm joined on the line from Tel Aviv by our correspondent, Stephanie Fried. Stephanie, of course, since that announcement was made, there's been very different reactions from Israelis and Palestinians. Just tell us more about that.
Very different reactions, and I'll tell you the truth is now since the morning I've traveled to Jerusalem, so I'm now in Jerusalem. It looks like any other day that would be in Jerusalem, the day after this historical, as the Israeli leaders are calling it, declaration by the U.S. president. What I'm seeing here that's different, however, and this is since Wednesday, before the announcement was made, Israeli flags and American flags flying along the main boulevards and highways here in the city. Last night, the ancient city of Jerusalem was lit up with the American beside the U.S., or the U.S. flag beside the Israeli flag. So that's cosmetic, and that's in terms of visual. I can say that, yes, very different responses. The Israeli government, very positive responses, saying this is historic, it was long waited for, that it's about time. Certainly on the Palestinian side, saying it's devastating and that it negates agreements, bilateral agreements. It goes against international conventions, that it means that the U.S. can no longer be a peace broker between the sides, and calling for an emergency session of the PLO Executive Committee. Also, Hamas calling for an uprising on the street amongst the Palestinian population. So definitely very, very different responses, and now just sort of waiting, as also Israel's chief of staff has now broadened security as related to the Palestinian sector and security, Israeli security around those areas, anticipating violence.
Of course, that has been the concern for many around the world. Stephanie Fried, thank you very much for that update. And as you heard there, she was in fact joining us from Jerusalem, where it is quite a different city 24 hours later.